Tonight, things are a little bit different than we normally do. First, as soon as I'm done talking, I'll let Derek say whatever he's got to say. And then we're going to hand it over to Andy Palomino from Sim Auctions. He's going to get us started in some APBA, and then everybody's come to see Kenneth and Roswell, the creators of APBA and some other things, and they're going to talk about it and tell you how to win with all the code they created, but I'm sure it's changed a bit. So now it would probably put you in last place. And there'll be the availability for questions and stuff, and then Andy's going to take us out. Just a couple real quick announcements. We do not have a presence at SABR 53 down in Texas later this month. We will be having a meeting probably late August, beginning of September, just as a committee, no guest, just to check in. If you want to volunteer for things, etc., that'll be great. That's normally some of the stuff we would do at the annual conference, but this year, for various reasons, neither Derek nor I can make it. As you can see from my background and my hat, I am Canadian, so you can guess why I'm not coming to Texas at this point in time. There is lots of great new information on our blog. Make sure you check that out. And before we leave tonight, Derek will give you a rundown of the guests that are coming. So right now I'm going to pass it over to Derek, and then he's going to pass it on to Andy, and et cetera, et cetera.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Kenneth and Roswell Miller. Excited to have you guys on to discuss the APBA Major League Players and the Baseball for Windows Broadcast Blast Edition. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to play a half inning of the game in case anyone's not familiar with it. And we're going to do the Broadcast Blast version with Ernie Hardwell doing the play-by-play. And then Kenneth and Roswell will talk about the history of the games that they designed and so forth. So go ahead and let Andy share his screen out, and we'll go ahead and watch a quick demo of the game.
Perfect. All right, guys. So it was a proper introduction to start off, I think, with a half inning of the classic game. And then I think it was also proper for me to select the Tigers and the Padres from the 1984 edition of the Tigers. So let me share my screen and we'll play a quick half inning. All right, guys, just confirming. Derek, can you confirm you can see the screen?
Can see the screen and I can hear the crowd noise.
Perfect. Let me get the teams loaded up, and we'll play a half inning here, and we'll listen to Ernie. So let's load up the Padres as the visiting team, and of course the Tigers as the home team. All right, that looks good. Designated hitter because we're in Detroit. And let's load up the Padres lineup, and let's just get this guy over here to be the DH. And let's go with auto, and I'm going to go with my go-to micromanager for the Padres, which is usually Buck Miller for me. Let's go with Buck here. All right, so that looks all good there. Let's load up the Tigers lineup. And there, of course, we're going to go with Sparky Anderson. All right, it looks like we are good to go. And here we go.
Here we go again, sports fans. I'm Ernie Harwell. And welcome to Detroit Baseball. Join the crowd and enjoy the action. You're on 66 WAPBA. We're coming to you from out here at the park. Today, the visiting San Diego visitors will test the locals at home. The locals take the field here in the first. Here's how it lines up defensively for the locals. Garvey at first base. Whitaker at second. Trammell the shortstop. Johnson at third. The outfield consists of Herndon in left field, Lemon in center field, and Gibson over in right. Parrish is behind the plate at DH and batting fifth. Evans. And on the mound for the locals, the right-handed Morris. For Morris, his first appearance of the season. Pretty good control. He will be facing visitor starter, right-hander Xiao. So settle in. We're ready to start this game. Wiggins will start the first. Morris brings it home. Batted hard on the ground toward right. Diving stop by Whitaker. Throws. And he makes the play to first. One away. Now at bat, Gwynn. He lets one go. Gwynn nubs it in front of home. Parrish pounces on it. Drops it. Picks it up again. And makes the throw to first. In time. For out number 2. Here comes Garvey to take his cuts. The pitch. Hot smash to Whitaker. Takes it on one hop. Over to Garvey at first. 3 away. Morris sets them down in order. Visitors, nothing. Locals coming up. The visitors take the field here in the first. Here's how it lines up defensively for the visitors. Garvey at first base. Wiggins at second. Templeton, the shortstop. Nettles at third. Across the outfield, in left, is Martinez. In center, McReynolds. And over in right, Gwynn. Kennedy is behind the plate at DH and batting ninth. Brown. And on the mound for the visitors, the right-handed Xiao. For Xiao, his first appearance of the season. Here's Whitaker to lead it off.
All right, guys, I have the game paused, and we're going to pick it back up again now towards the end of our conversation with Kenneth and Roswell. So we'll get to see the end of the game. But for now, I am going to kick it back over to Derek so he can introduce our guests.
Okay. Yeah. So Kenneth and Roswell, if you want to go ahead and I guess discuss how you became baseball fans, and then kind of work through how you decided that you were going to start the company, and then the various iterations of the game and the different utilities that you built for it. So if you guys want to talk for a bit, and then we'll do a Q&A session after that.
Thank you, Derek. It's Kenneth. And thank you to the SABR committee for having us tonight. It's kind of a 40-year-old history, and we're happy to go back there. But we're going to start even earlier than that. We were 6 and 7 years old, and we were already gamers. We were heavy Monopoly and checkers and chess fans, and a special call out to Labyrinth by Brio. I don't do that game, but then we moved to Utah. But our grandfather in Virginia, he'd been a young lawyer in New York, and he was the first Yankees. He was at the first Yankees game at the house that Ruth built. That is in 1923 at Yankee Stadium. So with us out west, grandfather in the mid-50s started sending us baseball cards, and we started collecting them. And there was a lot of bubble gum. I'd shoot marbles for them. I won a Mickey Mantle rookie card, a tough year for the Mick, if you remember, but but we had quite a collection. And then in 57, our grandfather took me to our first game, Yankees versus the White Sox at the stadium, and Mantle hit for the cycle that night. He lofted one 4 feet below the lights, upper deck right field, may have been his longest regular season home run. No one had ever hit a regular season home run out of the stadium. Well, Josh Gibson is said to have hit one in an exhibition game. But anyway, the crowd went wild, and of course, I became a Yankees fan. A few years later, Roswell went to high school in Southern California and sweetened on the Dodgers. That was okay by me. I had a soft spot for Duke Snider, who was in his prime, because we shared the same birthday. So as a Christmas present one year, grandfather bought us each 100 shares in the Salt Lake Bees, a semi-pro baseball team. And then later came Avalon Hill games, Gettysburg, Tactics, Stratego, Diplomacy, eventually card games. You know, my parents taught us liar's poker, played bridge with my grandmother. While Roswell was building an 8-foot hydroplane, I was shooting pool and billiards, and he was the useful one. In high school, I played varsity baseball. In college, supported myself playing poker. But, well, my grades suffered, and I took a year off to work for IBM France in Paris. So no baseball, so I missed the run-up of the amazing Mets. And when I was away, my parents moved east, and my mother tossed out all our baseball cards. A good condition Mantle rookie card is now worth millions. Ouch. But back at college, after 3 years off from being on the field, I went out for baseball, but didn't make the team. And then I was introduced to the APBA board game by my college friend, Mayor Ribolo. Mayer later wrote a book about the Jewish baseball players. So he was a big fan, and I became somewhat obsessed with APBA, but I graduated. So Roswell, how do you remember that time and the beginning of the game for your family?
Well, I first saw the baseball game, the APBA baseball game, when Kenneth gave my two sons a copy of the board game along with the Bill James Encyclopedia as I believe it was a Christmas present one year. And one of my sons, Rusty, got very, very into the game. And about the same time, I acquired my first IBM PC. And they said, well, Dad, why don't you program this? And I decided that that would be a fun project. At the time, I was working in the satellite communications business. And so I started on it. And Ken saw the first results of this. This was in DOS now, and decided that maybe we should approach APBA, and Ken can take it from there.
So, the book that I gave Roswell was the Bill James baseball abstract. I don't know if there's anybody in the audience that remembers that, but this was like the second year of the abstract, and we were really impressed by it. And but of course I was a big fan of APBA, so I met with Dick Seitz, who was kind of the head of APBA, who was a classic gruff baseball style. And then I went out to Lawrence and met with Bill James, with Bill, and he was, by that time was really creating a new sweet spot for understanding baseball performance. So it was a choice between adding an interpretive stats-based interface, the APBA model, or what I call a geophysical stochastic interface like Bill's. And we chose APBA because of the community and the field-tested model. The board game had existed for 30 years, so it was pretty well hammered on. And that was the DOS version published about 1984. In the original version, the inspiration for adding authentic baseball language came from years of listening to baseball on the radio, long summers in rural Virginia in the 50s and early 60s, picking up Yankee games with a shortwave radio. Then 20 years later, in the early PC era, the pros outcome mystery and adventure games from Infocom and others, which were gaining popularity. You remember those Infocom games? They were magic, and they were magic because they had a text interface and navigational decision making that paralleled, we felt, paralleled to baseball's managers' decision making. So that gave us courage. So we developed the game on spec and sold it to Random House. We did the deal with the APBA, sold it to Random House, and with them it lasted a couple of years. They didn't know what to do with it. It was a new flashy market, computer gaming, for which they were unprepared. And we took back the game from them at Miller Associates to become when that became Random House McMax. So we then, as Miller Associates, we quickly went to Maxis, the SimCity folks, to get broader distribution. And that took us almost overnight from 50 stores to 3,000 stores. And that, was great for a few years. Then we published our first 100 or so add-ons, upgrades to Statmaster, League Manager, annual data disks, eventually back to 1886. And that allowed us to develop Baseball for Windows. Baseball for Windows came with Windows 3.0, which was the first wildly popular version of Windows and was graphics enabled. So with the graphics, we wanted the parks. And of course, so with the help of professional artist Andy Jarinko and a few fans, we published a bunch of parks, the current parks, some classic parks that didn't exist anymore even then, and then day and night versions of all. Roswell's son, Jason, who may be on tonight, I didn't see him, but he was a good artist and designer. He did all the decision icons for the game, and it's classic timeless design and, still works beautifully. So baseball on the radio still haunted us. So we conceived a broadcast blast. We wanted the poetry, and that meant a voice who respected the game of baseball. We wanted a storyteller who combined the gentleness of a long summer afternoon with the excitement and tension of a tight game. He had to be literate and thoughtful with deep radio experience. So a Hall of Famer, Ernie, was our first choice. We investigated many ways to enhance the game, color commentary, which we added, and that meant we had written really a 300-page book of baseball language. Within the model, of course, outcomes were randomized, and that meant that no matter how many fans we had and how many games they played for hundreds of years, there would never be two identical games. We thought about other add-ons. In the 90s, I was chairman of the Smithsonian National Design Museum, and we did an exhibit of French design. And at the opening dinner, my dinner partner, who was director of research and development for International Flavor and Fragrances, the largest smell creator in the world. So I pitched him with the idea of building a computer add-on device to add smells to a PC. We wanted to add the smell of hot dogs and mustard and leather and green grass to your experience. The Frenchman wasn't that enthusiastic. But we were on a roll. And in the 15 years that we were actively developing the game, we released 168 baseball products. In that time, 15 years, we had one technical release, that is a fix, in one data disk. The original Windows version had 200 beta testers managed by our 5-person shop. There was a challenging new release of Windows every year or two. Thank you, Roswell, we were able to keep up. He last updated it about 1998. Some of you are still playing it. That's a lot of hours hammering on that code. you can appreciate what Roswell did. Roswell, who were your mentors and what was the state of AI when we amped it up to micromanager?
Well, when I came out of college, interestingly enough, I was one of the first to graduate from my university in computer science. And so I owe a great deal to the professor who was my advisor. And I went to work for IBM right after that in their advanced development division. And we were fiddling with natural language processing. And I was introduced to Fred Thompson at Caltech, who got me started on artificial intelligence, and it's the state of the art in those days, which was pretty primitive. And by comparison to the technologies that we were looking at then and now, micromanager probably has about 150 variables in it, and uses a rule-driven mechanism to apply those rules in various situations. The modern AI systems are looking at systems that have 1 million variables, and all of those variables then are applied to a situation. But the technology just didn't exist in those days. And now I noticed IBM announced on Tuesday that they're going to build a new quantum computer that will be 20,000 times faster than anything we have today, and it will have more memory than 10 to the 48th power of the fastest computers that we have now, all in a fault tolerant. So the technology has evolved considerably over that time. So we put micromanager together and introduced that. And the second challenge technologically was the recording of Ernie Harwell. And the first problem was that we were working with the very first digital audio card, the Sound Blaster, for the IBM PC. And there was almost no software for it, although Sound Blaster did give us some help. And there just certainly was no such thing as actually taking multiple threads of voice and then tuning them all in. And of course, we wanted, not only did we want to play the national anthem and the Canadian national anthem for our friends in Canada, we wanted to make sure that the crowd in the background sounded realistic, and that when the game got exciting, they applauded and cheered, and that you could hear Ernie's voice announcing the game, and that his dialogue, which Kenneth wrote from listening to, I guess, hundreds of broadcasts, was just a whole new technology. And so we had to put that together as well in the form of a studio program that we took down. We took it out to Detroit and down to Florida during preseason baseball, and it would record the dialogue in a way that we could then edit it and insert names and scores and statistics and whatever the various attributes that we wanted to be announced during the game. And in the process of doing that, we learned a lot about how the digital technology was going to change the way music was done. And I remember once in Tampa, we were recording Ernie's voice, and we were all taking a break, and this guy comes in and he says, "I hear you're doing some pretty interesting stuff." And so we sat down and I showed him what this was. I didn't really know who he was. And he was interested in it and really smart about the digital technology and knew what he was doing. And so he walks out, and my tech guy goes, do you know who that was? And I said, no, but he was really smart, and he knew what we were doing. He said, that was Steven Tyler. And I don't know whether any of you know Aerosmith, but that was one of my favorite bands, but I had no idea who Steven Tyler was. So it was fun. It was an interesting technology, and and we were kind of at the leading edge of it.
Hey, going back to micromanager for a second, you have to appreciate that Roswell developed a programming language that allowed fans to customize a manager for each game with micromanager. So he actually developed that language, created it for the purpose. And that, along with League Manager, allowed everyone to play out a season in an hour or two. That's how slow it was in those days, a season in an hour or two. So you could test rotations and lineups, and you could test manager strategies, and you could make predictions about trades, which was all new functionality. And then Bill Schindel, who was a regular user of the game, he was supporting all of this with live tech support for years. Some of you, if you go back far enough, may have talked to him, but we were listening to our fans. We had amazing feedback from our generous tech support. It was a different world than today. So Ernie and Lulu were down in Florida. We had lunch with them, and they were telling us a story about traveling around Florida during spring training. And they were in a small town, driving through a small town. Kissimmee was the name of the town. But actually, they were arguing about how it was pronounced, Kissimmee or Kissimmee. And so they decided to stop at a local restaurant and go in and find out. And so they went in and they went up to the counter and they asked the young lady, how do you pronounce the name of the place we're in? And she said very seriously, Burger King. So that was Ernie. It was classic Ernie story, and it was always fun working with him. He was absolutely a delightful person, and he said, however, that recording the 30,000 sound bites for Broadcast Blast, 30,000 sound bites, was the hardest job that he had ever had in media. So those early algorithms smoothed out the sound, and we inserted the names and stats in real time, and that hadn't been done before. And again, thank you, Roswell. Along the way, we published originally the Dirk Baseball Encyclopedia. Colby Dirk created that for us. Then a year later, runs created became a new standard for performance measures, and so much more from Bill James's work. So I had been first director of Project Scoresheet for Bill while we were developing the game. So we went back to Bill. He had gone off to start Stats Inc. and develop his consulting business for teams and players. And at the time, Total Baseball, the book, I think it was Thorne, was the author, was the standard at the time for baseball data. But we released the Bill James Electronic Baseball Encyclopedia then, the first ever for a computer. And then we created Wizard. I think Alan programmed that for us. I think Wizard, which allowed a baseball fan to pull any player or team in history into Baseball for Windows from the encyclopedia. So something like 15,000 players who had ever played the professional game, including the Negro Leagues. That's what that's really what game dreams are made of. Being able to go anywhere in time with any player in any mix and match. Uh, our biggest customer then and fan was John Henry. Uh, you probably all know John now as the owner of the Red Sox, but at the time he had a minor league club only, and he had a commodities trading company, and he networked baseball for Windows in his offices so that his staff could set up a league. He bought everything we published 20 times. When he bought the Marlins, I went to his first game. Fast forward a couple of years, he led the buyout of the Red Sox in 2002. And you know the story. He hired Bill James and Theo Epstein, and he changed the way they analyzed players. And quickly they became competitive, winning the series in 2004. My wife and I went up to Fenway in late September that season to join John for a game. John had Red Sox caps for us. So I brought one home to my 4-year-old boy, and he wore it to school, and he lost several friends in kindergarten. I mean, hey, it's New York. So in the end, we want you to remember, if you remember anything about this game, it's that from the very start, it was a passion. It was implemented with the best science and gaming tech and technology that we could marshal. It was intended as a marriage of poetry, storytelling, and mathematics. My friend Carl Augusto, former president of the American Foundation for the Blind, who is blind, he field tested Broadcast Blast for its accessibility. He said that after 30 years of obsession, still today, his wife calls Baseball for Windows his mistress. We hope that's a durable love affair for some of you too. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you. I'm going to kick off with a question or two, and then we'll open it up to the group. You're talking about the play-by-play with Ernie. I'm just curious about how many hours did he spend recording all of that?
Oh, heavens. I'm not sure we ever counted them up.
I mean, we're talking like, several, I don't know. I'm sure it
Well,
was.
we did 2 weeks in Detroit,
Okay.
and we did Tampa a couple of times, and that was usually a couple of days worth because we had to record new names.
So you would meet up with him every year or every year or two to update the names then?
To update the names, yep.
Okay.
And we but it took the original recording session in Florida took a month, so it was 6 weeks. So you figure he could only work about 5 hours a day because it was grueling work for a voice as an instrument. And so somewhere in the order of whatever 35 times.
And it was
6
before
times
the
35,
technology
so.
it was before the technology for digital voice production or imitation was even a science. And so we had to sort of work with the editing of it. For example, I used to have to, we did the expressions in a way that the variables in the expression were all substituted with words that begin with B or D that are plosives. And so they are easy to spot, and you can edit them out and make room for the number or whatever it was that was supposed to go in there. And so and that was all done by hand. And we created some software that allowed us to manage the 30,000 clips that Ernie recorded over the time, as well as all the numbers and all of the names and so on.
I thought one of the other things that was brilliant was the addition of, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's Tommy Walton that did the vendor voiceovers. I think he was the Cardinals spring training, one of the, like he does the hot dogs and soda and all that. So I thought that was a nice touch to have, you know, when the game is idle, you start hearing the various vendor calls.
Yeah, there's some surprise outcomes in there too.
You just have to let it sit there long enough, you'll probably hear them, right? So, all right, let's open it up if anybody else has some questions.
I got a couple things just before it opens, Derek. I'm somewhat curious. Okay, I've lost that train of thought. That doesn't take long. I can clarify the argument that Ernie had with his wife. In 1977, my parents took me and my two younger siblings to Disney World for the first time. And in fact, I think the only time they ever took us. And my dad asked that question. And he was told that during the day, it's Kissimmee, or sorry, I can't get it out of my mouth. But in the evening, it's Kissimmee. So that's what he got told. The other question I had for you, you guys said you were both did a lot of gaming and a whole lot growing up, and that was part of creating this and your kids. Okay, so who was the better at gaming? Who won the most?
We
Yeah.
once played a 6-day game of Monopoly, at the end of which I owed Roswell $150,000 and I resigned.
Little competition between you two growing up?
Healthy.
Yeah,
That's
you
good.
bet.
That's good. Good to see. Okay, now we can open it up. Don't be shy.
Hey guys, I have a quick question. So I play in an APBA league, and one of the things that I'm fascinated by, and I think I read a thread somewhere in one of the posts about this. So in terms of the pitching grades, is there in fact some randomization in terms of the pitching grades? And if there is, does it occur at the start of the game, in the middle of the game, or just anywhere at any point in time? Or is that a secret you don't want to divulge?
Wow. There are, of course, are there randomized by play-by-play? Is that what you're asking?
Right. So
Um,
so if the pitcher starts as a grade 17, or if he's graded as such, is it possible that he might actually start the game at a grade 14, or that he might just randomly switch to a lower grades at some point in the game?
So 40-year-old history tells me that there is no current randomization of the but it of course does change radically, can change radically during the game,
Right.
and those changes may not. They rely on certain outcomes to do that, and not necessarily aligned. If you're saying, does it compare to the board?
Got it.
It may change based on that.
I have a question. Hello, for Roswell. So you mentioned you created a programming language in order to make the game sort of extensible so that people could modify. What did you use something as a basis for that? Like, what was your inspiration?
It's just really it's a rule-based system, and I knew more about the mathematics of it at the time, and I just sort of implemented it. It's basically you take a set of parameters that are a combination of the environment and then meaning the situation, and a set of parameters that are the potential outcomes or the calls that you want made or could be allowed to make, and you map the two. You allow Micromanager allows you to give ranges of, you know, if it's this situation, and you write all those rules down, and it compiles them up, and then it watches every situation and applies those rules according to the situation in the game, whether you're playing against it or whether you're letting it play for you in a league game or something, you know. But no, I wasn't basing it on anything other than what we knew about the mathematics of rule-based decision-making systems.
Cool.
Well, and hi all. I'm his oldest son, Rusty. I'll also just point out that if it was ever too complicated, he had two rather loud voices at the dinner table saying, "This just doesn't work." So translating that mathematics and that code into something that was accessible for folks that didn't have that insight, you know, it's one thing to write an if-then statement. It's another thing to say, well, this if-then statement is going to turn into a hit and run, and it's going to turn into a hit and run in these certain circumstances. You know, it had to be accessible, right? So what better way to do that than to have a couple of teenagers barking at you over dinner?
In-house sanity checking is always a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
I have a question here. So I need a little bit of help trying to figure out how to beat Andy's Havana team in a league that we're in together. I go back to playing the APBA master game, and I'm a real numbers guy, and I used to love the ability to see the percentages on a base advancement, knowing I have a 50% chance, 40% chance, whatever. Playing your game, I've had many frustrating moments where I think I interpret the description well enough to try and understand what that percentage really is to advance the extra base. And almost exclusively, I get thrown out and think, I guess that I didn't read that right. That wasn't hit deep enough. The right fielder didn't go far enough. Can you give me any hints to help me beat Andy when I'm trying to advance an extra base?
Well, we certainly tried to make the language indicate differences in probabilities. So I don't, I have to go back to specific outcomes to find out and look at the boards to tell you, why it's being misinterpreted. But I would say in general that using your best baseball instincts is probably whether the run, whether you have to get to third or not, whether that run is important to you is a better probably indicator than any number. Are you suggesting that you'd like an indicator up there that tells you what the probability is?
Yeah,
I mean,
being that I was
baseball managers don't have that, right?
Yeah. Being I was raised at the master game and then came to your game, I was used to that. So I've certainly adjusted over the years, but I did used to play that I knew there was a 67% chance because there's no visual interpretation. It's hard to know, did he take a good turn around second? Is the outfielder facing the other way? It's hard to kind of visualize it. So I don't know if I'd necessarily like it, but that's what I was used to.
Well, I feel your pain, but the language is consistent with the probabilities. So give that another try. Maybe you might just keep track of where it's different than you think, and maybe you can learn to read it in a different way. But
that's very helpful. Thank you.
I've got another question for you guys. The advanced injury management was a really nice addition to League Manager. I guess who kind of brainstormed on that and came up with that idea. I like the fact that the players go through different phases of being, you know, tired and worn out, or if they haven't played in a while, they're itchy, they're, you know, they want to get in the game. So I guess maybe if you could talk through how you decided to implement that.
I think that was Kenneth and Dick came up with that.
Well, it was really, I think, the fans that came up with that. They, you know, in league play,
Yeah,
there is
that
that
too.
variable, and you have it. I guess you have it in the board game. Is that true? Is John, you're on? Is it still true in the board game that you've got injuries for some specified time, or was that our creation? I can't remember now. John Herson's on from APBA, but
I can speak a little bit to the history here, because what I recall, the game had injuries in it that were fairly binary, set lengths sort of thing. And as a player, you're right, we had our own little house league, you know, Ken, you and I and a few friends. I mean, we got frustrated, right? Because we were trying to play 162 games and we'd get outcomes that we thought skewed the standings. And so it was just an ongoing dialogue. So as the Windows game came online, you know, from what I recall, you know, it was an easy area to add value, but nobody had ever done the research. No one ever looked at the DL and said, here's how long a player actually goes out, and here's how often they go out, and here's what those breakdowns look like. From what I can recall, you and Jason dug in, my brother, and did a lot of research, pulled real-time data, probably from the Sporting News, if I'm guessing right, because I think that would have been the only intense source of credible DL information at the time, and compiled it into a database that we could then make, you know, some serious inquiries on and decide, all right, what should the injury tables look like? You know, from there, I didn't get much more involved, but you developed, you know, what came into the game after that.
yeah, I think that's about right. I remember doing just a simple stat analysis on, you know, how many players were injured over what period of time and what kind of injuries they were. But
Yeah.
If I could, the AIM actually had its origin, I believe, in advanced player management from the Computer Sports Network. That was one of the offerings in the early days of the baseball game. And if you look at it, you can see that a lot of the advanced player management was incorporated into AIM itself.
Yeah, that was a early day PC, no internet year, and they tried to network it and to create a PC based network, you know, internet available or private network available game, and so we so that that functionality might have been in that. You're better memory than I, Paul. You've been with it a long time.
Yeah, there are other ways of knowing too. I would have one question for Roswell, and that's with the micromanager editor. If
Yep.
anyone that uses it, there's 10,000 parentheses involved. So I was wondering, it's like a Lisp-like language. Was that programmed in Scheme or Smalltalk or something?
Oh, no. It would have been nice to have a small talk, but it's all Pascal.
Oh, it was, okay.
I got a couple quick things here. I see we have an Andrew Miller. Is he part of the family too?
He is. He's my son.
Okay.
Hello there.
I didn't know if he would declare that like Rusty did. So, you know, I just wanted to point that out. Were you guys involved in any of the other sports that APBA did computer-wise, like the hockey, and I think there's a football and some of the others, or were you strictly the baseball?
We were strictly baseball, but at one point I went to the voice of the uh, Kentucky Derby of Churchill Downs and asked him whether he'd be interested in being the voice of a racing game for us. And he said he would consider it. And while we were considering it, we took a hard look at the racing game, and the problem with racing is that the managerial decisions, if you will, are made by the jockey, not by the owner. Kind of like the manager versus the owner, I guess. But they're made by the jockey in real time, and so it became a jockey game, and the game, the APBA game wasn't really built that way. So it made it was really a different model. But I feel like you could revisit that today, and with a racing game, because like baseball, horse racing has a great history of being attached to audio and the intimacy of audio, and that's so I think it would make a very intimate. We find audio even more intimate than video, of course, and so that's probably where we'd go if we were going back 40 years.
Thanks. Okay, anyone else? Come on, step up.
I have
So
one
guys,
question. Oh, sorry.
what you were, oh, sorry, go on.
Thanks. I mean, I have one more question actually about the audio. So when you were recording with Ernie, and you mentioned you had sort of 30,000 sound bites that he all recorded together. When you set to have him record, did you just have him record sort of the fragment, or did you have, like, for example, if he's saying a player and then makes a play, did you have like a name as a placeholder that then he recorded that then you chopped up, or did you just record the individual sound pieces and stitch them together?
We recorded sound bites that were whole phrases with substitute names or numbers. And then we would we would clip them out. And then I would encode that as a variable. And then we had the variables sitting off in separate recordings. And we pieced that all together, actually real time as it's being played back. Then we mix it with the crowd sound and we mix it with everything else. So it was, and we were starting from scratch because Sound Blaster didn't have any idea what they had there, but it was good fun.
It's really fascinating because I think at that point, like, Sound Blaster was playing with synthesized speech, right? So actually having like pre-recorded speech that was being put together on the fly was very novel. So yeah, I was curious how you had arranged that, since there wasn't really a paradigm for it in place at the time. So thank you for that explanation.
No, and when we had to adapt it to a studio environment, where Ernie would sit in a room, a recording and with a microphone, and we would cue him, and the tech would help with we'd wire in the computer to the sound system, and so we did a lot of learning on the fly with that one, and it was good fun, and it seems to have worked out pretty well. I kind of knew that we were on the right track one night was working late in our offices in Connecticut, and I was trying to finish up some of the coding, and the fellow who was cleaning our office comes running into my room because I was playing a game with the Mets, and he says, "Mr. Miller, Mr. Miller, where are the Mets playing tonight? It's the middle of January."
That's great.
I said to myself when that happened, I said, I knew we had a product.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Can you talk about the I guess the games were or the different applications. So the game is modular as opposed to everything being integrated, right? So can you talk about how that was kind of built upon, and I guess maybe the decision making as to even when you got to the Windows version that you still have to launch Advanced Draft or League Manager or Stat Master kind of separately?
I'm not sure I understand fully. It was when we got to Windows, we had the Windows had a Pascal interface, and we simply built on top of the Pascal interface to Windows. And that's, I've forgotten whose Pascal it was. I think that might have been Dell or somebody who had software to do that.
The business decision was clear to us, though, and that is that we had to recover our development costs for every bit of code. And so in the beginning, it was a question of just keeping everything separate, and and fans would help support us. That worked until the strike in '96.
Yeah.
So we got 15 years out of it.
I guess my point is that the modules are kind of intuitive to me, but I think to some players, it might throw them off that, oh, I have to go out of this program and go into Stat Master to look this up, and then I have to go into League Manager to create my schedule, or that type of thing. But to me, it kind of makes sense where everything, where to find everything.
The environment in Windows 3.2, which was that original version, and the early versions of Windows, you're looking at apps that are considerably more integrated today than they were in those days. And basically, you wrote them as standalone in those days. And about the only thing that they could share would be the database of statistics. But even then, it was hard to integrate. But it would have been nice, of course, for Stat Master to be able to look those things up while you were in the game. But you could run them simultaneously, I guess, in separate windows. Even then, but even back in those days, Windows was pretty limited.
Was there a RAM limit also, Roswell? Or?
I'm sorry?
Was there a RAM limit to what we could load into memory?
There were some memory limits as well, but those were also slower computers. It's these new computers are they're at least 1,000 times faster than they were in 1970s and 80s.
I did want to say that the help files are extremely helpful. They're very extensive, and that even on some of today's games, it's really hard to figure out what the specific option does. And I do find myself poking around in the various help things when I'm you know, either I'm trying to do something in advanced draft, and it's like, oh wait, how do I do that again? And it's super helpful. Everything is kind of linked, you know, to so whoever developed that and worked on that, kudos.
I think that came from the original user manual, which was 40 or 50 pages long.
I'll take a bow on some of that. I spent a summer on the help desk, and I learned very quickly that without a screen to share, that I had to interpret everything that was coming from the user, you know, through a phone, right? We remember what that's like. And I had to then, you know, figure out what they were looking at, listen to it, understand it, replicate it. As soon as I hung up, I'm like, this help menu sucks. So, you know, you'd start to redraft.
And in those early days, boy, I tell you, some of the technical support questions you got, like the guy would, somebody would call up and say, well, my cup holder is broken. And you'd say, what, your cup holder is broken? He said, yeah, that little button that pushes out has a hole in the middle. Isn't that a cup holder? And that's, of course, where you used to put your floppy disk.
But truth be told, I mean, there were a lot of people that contributed to the help menus, but there was definitely a recognition that there were limited resources and a small team, and that, you know, the better the descriptions, you know, the easier it would be to self-serve. I might have been a little obsessive too. It's possible.
Well, just to let you know, your efforts there were and still are appreciated. All right, we have any other questions? If any of you guys are shy, you can throw them in the chat.
Well, thank you all for your interest.
I did want to ask, so you worked on the game from about 80, I would say 1984, 85, and until the late 90s, correct?
Starting in 82, going to the late 90s. That's right.
And I guess what was the impetus behind you got to version, what was it, 5.5, I think was your last release, right? I think it was 5.5.
All
so
right. I'll go with that.
Anyway, I guess what was the did the strike contribute to the shuttering of the company, or what? I guess what was behind that? I know eventually the code, you know, still lives on today. I think we're up to version 6.1. But just curious what the I guess what the
part of it was technological too, if I can jump in, because what happened was that video became an extremely important technology that developed. I mean, it leapfrogged over audio, and so an audio version of the game very quickly got replaced by the hand-eye coordination versions of simulations on a baseball on a computer. And frankly, I think some of the art of the game, personal opinion, was lost by going to the hand-eye coordination. I think people aren't as let's say as aware of the talent that it takes to manage the talent in a baseball game, and that's what our game was focused on, that knowledge, not the hand-eye coordination piece.
And the strike was a brutal
the strike
history. The strike. Unfortunately, we misread them. We misread that. Our feeling was that that they would settle, and our feeling too was that if they went out, that fans would turn to the computer game even more as a replacement entertainment, and it went just the other way. fans care deeply. Baseball fans are passionate and they care deeply about the game. And they got angry, and rightly so, I think, at both the players and ownership for not being able to settle and for shutting down half a season. And why not? So our business suffered mightily from that, and the time seemed right to pass it, to put it in APBA's hands, and they've been diligent marketers of the game ever since. And I guess they're John can talk about. Is John still on? Yes, John, are you on? You want to talk? It's still being played. The DOS version is still being played. So you guys know better than we do. Any of you still in the leagues?
Well, I'll share a quick story that I bought the Apple II version of the game. I'm going to say 1986 or 1987. And I'm still kicking myself because when I bought my first PC, my parents were like, well, why, that Apple II over there is collecting dust. Why don't you sell it? And I sold my Apple II and all the games. And I think if I had that one now, your game alone is probably, when I see it on eBay, it's up over $100. And I don't even want to talk about how much my Apple II would cost me to get back at this point. So. All right, any other questions, guys?
I don't know if it's a question, but you know what, Rusty, you've been attached to this as a kid and been going on. I think I need your help to beat Andy. And it comes to sim auctions, I need some real help because I'm sick of him winning.
All right. We'll trade details.
Come on, Rusty.
Kenneth,
Don't do
back
that
to
to
your
me.
question. This is an example. We got an email this week from somebody, a fan, who is still using BBW 3.0. And he was wondering when we were going to come out with a bridge so he could use it with the new operating systems.
Well, wait long enough, and or maybe not that long, and AI will write it for us.
Yep.
Wonder if there's a particular reason why he's sticking with 3.0.
We have people that play DOS still, leagues that are still playing DOS. A lot of people, I'm not sure why, a lot of the leagues are using the older versions of BBW. I don't know if they don't want to spend the money on it or they're just happy with what they have. But we have people that have separate computers with DOS as the operating system for the old basketball, hockey, and football games. That's all they use it for.
It makes perfect sense. I still have an old Windows XP machine just to run some of my old games on it. Now, thankfully there are, DOSBox and other emulators for, so you can run them on some of these games on a modern PC now. The Windows 95, 98 games are a little bit tougher, but yeah, I would encourage folks, if you haven't played this before, to give it a try. I spent hours and hours, from the age of, I would say 12 forward with various editions of this game. And just countless hours of enjoyment, mixing and matching teams and, moving players around and everything, so.
Thank you, Derek. If you want to know what an old audio fan does in his later life, you check out Spark Hunter. It's a audio drama that I co-wrote and produced. So you see where all those hours spent listening to baseball storytelling got me.
That was one of my follow-up questions was, what do you guys once, I guess post 2000, what have you guys been up to? What did you move on to after this?
So I've been writing, and Spark Hunter is my most recent work, written in response to the world in 2016, but published in about 2 years ago, just at the advent of AI. It's a story about an AI.
Excellent. And
I've been
Roswell?
working on an artificial intelligence project, basically using the myriad of statistical databases out there, trying to put together a tool that sort of brings those all together, tries to take the, what's the old expression about statisticians and liars? I've forgotten it, but
Lies, damn
it's a,
lies, and statistics.
yeah.
Wait.
I'm trying to take develop a tool that works minimizes that problem. Let's put it that way.
All right. Last call for questions. Otherwise, I've got just some quick updates as to our upcoming guests, and then Andy's going to play the 9th inning of the game that we started earlier, so we can hear a little more of Ernie's broadcasting, but in the towards the end of the game. So,
Can I just say something?
Sure.
And I don't mean to embarrass you, Kenneth or Roswell, but these men were 40 years ahead of their time with, especially with the audio. And they've always been, you can tell the professionalism, the pride, and their love for baseball through their products that they have made. And another thing, some of the guys want to know why you're not coming to the convention this year. You guys did such a great job last year. But BBW, and I'm a little biased, I understand that, but it's the best, and it has stood the test of time. So thank you, gentlemen.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
John.
A couple things. John, the reason we're not going is Derek's got some family things going on, and needs to, before his kids get married and leave the house, do some vacation things with them before they get too old for that. Me, I'm Canadian, and I teach at a college. I'm in academia, and I'm sorry, but your president doesn't really want us there. We've been cautioned by my institution and by others to not go to the U.S. right now. So that's
Interesting. Yep.
that's the whole thing around it.
Well, it's
one thing
always the weekend after Father's Day. And Father's Day is the third Sunday in June, which one of my customers found out because he had booked a cruise for that weekend, much to his wife's dismay, who attends a convention. But I certainly understand, and I understand family situations. We've had quite a few folks not coming this year because of family situations, most of them health related, and family comes first.
When it was first announced, I was excited to come to Texas, even in the heat of the summer, but it's just not going to happen this time around.
I understand. I understand completely.
One thing I wanted to point out is we're talking a bit about AI, and I think Derek might have sat in on this meeting. I know SABR, one of the projects they would really like to get off is a baseball AI with like real information coming out. I mean, often through AI you don't get the honest truth, kind of like the internet. But I think that project's going on. Derek, you may have some information on that. But if that's something any of you are interested in Roswell, I was thinking of you because you mentioned you were doing some AI stuff and you love baseball, in your spare 10 minutes, which I'm sure you have lots of. I'm sure Rusty doesn't keep you as busy as when he was a teenager. But Derek, if you got anything about that, you want to throw it into your spiel of what's going on, that'd be great.
I sat in on one of the meetings, but I haven't. Just with our own committee keeps me busy enough, so I decided not to go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, there is an a SABR AI committee. So I'm curious to see what they start working on, but I haven't heard any firm details on that. So real quick. We've got a couple meetings confirmed. Next one is July 8th, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's with Dean Patino, the founder of Baseball Classics. And we have August 26th, 8 p.m. Eastern, Steve Shaw. He's the creator of High Leverage Baseball, which is a tabletop sim. So, and look for more announcements from us coming up. I've got a couple for September and October that I'm waiting to confirm. So I guess let's kick it over to Andy, and then we'll just have a final wrap up after that.
Perfect. Yeah, let's let Ernie take us home. Let me share the screen. I think when I paused it, we were bottom of the seventh with 2 outs, I believe. Let's see.
As that comes up, guys, if you're interested in the AI and can't find anything, drop me an email and I'll get you some answers.
All right, let's see. Let me activate the sound here. And let's resume the game. And yes, bottom of the seventh, 2 outs, and it looks like the Padres are actually ahead 4-3. So I was playing with the letting the computer manage both teams before. This time I switched this so that I can control the Tigers.
Those icons you're looking at were Jason Miller's were, Roswell's son.
Excellent.
Yep.
The runners take their lead. The offering from Hernandez. Kennedy pops it up behind the plate. Parrish tosses the mask away. Moves under it. And he makes the catch. That's 3 away. For the visitors, 1 run on no hits, no errors. They leave 2. 1 notch could be enough. Locals trailing 4-3, and we'll go to the home half. For Detroit, it'll be Garvey, Lemon, and Herndon. All right, to get it going for the locals here, Garvey. The delivery from Chow. High fly ball to right center. Gwynn races to the track, reaches up, and brings it down. And there's 1 away. Okay, next up, Lemon. Chow fires it in. Cut on. And it's lined to center field. Base hit. McReynolds in, and it skips by him. He's after it. And Lemon is into second standing. Score that a double. Gwynn came over quickly to back him up. The tying run is now at second base. Second safety for Lemon. Well, next to bat for Detroit is Herndon. Batting 8. 1 out. Lemon on at second. And here comes visitors, manager Miller. He's asking Chow for the ball. On his way to the mound is Gossage, the right-hander. So Chow gets his innings. He pitched 7 1/3. His line, 3 runs. So far, on 7 hits. Walk 6. He fans 2. He's responsible for the runner. He'll win it if they hold the 1-run lead. For Gossage, this is his first appearance. He's a right-handed pitcher. He inherits a runner in scoring position. It's his game to save. 1 down, 8th inning, 1 on. Next up, Herndon. Speedy Lemon edging toward third. Now Gossage pitches. Cut on. Way out in front. Strike 3. 2 away. 2 away. 8th inning. 1 on. Johnson gets set to face Gossage. Gossage looks back at Lemon on second. Gossage kicks and delivers. A topper out front. Gossage has it. Throws to first. For the 3rd out. For the Locals, no runs on 1 hit. No errors. 1 left. They had a chance but could not convert. Locals trailing by 1, and they'll try to hold them until the 9th. Martinez, Nettles, and Templeton to bat next. To get it going for the visitors here, Martinez. Hernandez to the wind. Martinez hits a ground hugger toward second. Whitaker picks it up and flips to first. Routine. 1 away. Nettles steps up to face Hernandez. He lets 1 go. He hits a lazy fly ball. Nettles got under it. And now so does Herndon. It's in the bag. 2 down. For San Diego. None on. 2 gone. Templeton gets set to bat against Hernandez. He'll bat from the right side this time. Hernandez with the pitch. Whistle to right. In there for a hit. Gibson is over quickly. Bobbles the ball momentarily, but Templeton isn't buying it. He sticks to first for the single. 1 on. Flannery gets set to face Hernandez. He's the DH. The offering to Flannery. Swung on. Strike. Templeton is off to the races. Here's a peg for Parrish. The slide. Going to be close. Safe. Templeton has a swipe. That's his first steal of the season, and that's the visitor's second stolen base in this game. Now the pitch. Swung on. Bounced toward the mound. Hernandez knocks it down. Now he has it. He goes to first for the 3rd out. For the visitors, no runs, 1 hit. They leave 1. They waste the base runner. Holding a slight edge, we've played 8 1/2. Locals down 4-3. We're at the head of the order for the Locals. Gossage will face Whitaker, Trammell, and Gibson. Here's Whitaker to lead it off. The pitch, cut on. Way out in front, strike 3. 1 down. 1 away, 9th inning. We have Trammell coming up to hit. The pitch, line to right. Gwynn will play it on the hop. And Trammell is on with a single. The tying run is on. Second safety for Trammell. All right, here's Gibson. For Detroit, Trammell down at first. 1 down. Trammell bluffs going. Here's a pitch from Gossage. It's back to him at the mound. Gossage turns and throws to second. In time for the out. And Gibson is on at first. That's the 2nd out. So, 2 down. Gibson down at first for Detroit. Parrish will bat next for Detroit. A right-sider. He's their cleanup hitter. First baseman Garvey ready for a throw from Gossage. Now he throws to first, and Gibson is back easily. Gossage gets the ball back. Now he's set again. The offering from Gossage. Swung on. Popped up. Templeton is backing up quickly. Still backing. He's under it. And makes the catch. Oh, those visitors. The Locals let it get away at the end. The visitors add a 1-run victory to their record. The Locals leave the tying run on. Our apprehension is released. The Locals have fallen to the visitors 4-3. Here's the line for the visitors. 4 runs on 6 hits, no errors. They leave 5 for the locals. 3 runs on 8 hits, no errors. And they leave 10. Shaw gets his first win. His record now 1-0. Morris takes his first loss. His record now 0-1. Gossage gets his first save. That puts the wraps on this one. This is WAPBA and Ernie Harwell saying so long from Detroit. Final score: San Diego visitors 4, Detroit locals 3.
Oh man, I was really hoping for a comeback there. That would have been apropos, but it just didn't happen.
A little bit of drama. That was neat.
Yeah.
So, all right. Unless anybody has any last minute thoughts or questions, I really want to thank Kenneth, Roswell, everybody who joined us here. I really appreciate you coming on, talking about this game. As John mentioned, 40 years in, and a lot of us out here still playing it. So that's definitely a testament to all of the work that you guys put into it.
Kenneth?
I know we all appreciate it.
You got an audience here. You want to plug your book?
Me?
Oh,
Who are we talking to?
I was talking to Kenneth. Well,
Oh.
Derek,
Oh.
I mean, you can plug your book all you want. Every meeting.
Yeah. No, not I won't.
It's being field tested right now, so we're it hasn't been published. So I'll wait until that's over. But thank you for mentioning it.
Well, I like to give out
It's
that
called
information.
hovering.
Hovering? Okay, I'll watch for it. Derek, you got so many books out there, we're not going to even talk about them tonight.
All good. All right, folks. Well, yeah. I guess we're all set here. So thanks again for coming on, Kenneth and Roswell. Really appreciate it. Rusty, everybody who was on.
Thanks for the invite. It was enjoyable.
Yeah.
Great
you,
to
Andy,
be
gentlemen.
with you guys,
you
and
wanna
thanks
plug
to
your
Saber.
auctions? Andy, you want to plug your auction sims? Get some more people that you can beat?
Oh yeah, guys. So there's, I don't know how many of you know the project, but years ago I started a little project where I take historical baseball seasons and we actually create a system where we bid on the season. So we do an auction. So very similar to a fantasy baseball auction, but the difference is in a fantasy baseball auction, you have your $260 cap, but you're bidding on projected stats. So what we do in sim auctions is we take 5 or 6 teams, we make all the players free agents. So then we start to bid on those historical seasons. So the challenge is you need to come up with a pricing model to decide what you're going to bid while staying within that cap. For fantasy baseball, you can buy stats commercially that will tell you what you should bid on these players. But for when you're bidding on historical seasons for APBA, you have no idea. You'll have to make up your own pricing models. So Mark and Derek would attest that it's a challenging process because you have to get the right pricing, but then you also have to manage your money during the auction, which we do via Zoom. So it's a lot of fun and a lot of challenge, but we've had a good time doing it.
And your pricing model can be thrown out the window on the very first guy.
Exactly.
Well, and the main thing is that Andy is using Baseball for Windows.
Correct.
Once
To
we
simulate the
bid on
seasons.
all those players, yeah, he simulates all the seasons with Baseball for Windows.
Yeah, because we determine a winner. We set up a separate meeting after everybody's constructed their new teams. And then we do a sim auction World Series, which what we do is we simulate an entire season during our World Series. So every season that we simulate counts as one game, basically. And then the winner of 4 simulated seasons is the one that actually wins the World Series. So it's not a 4 out of 7 games; it's a 4 out of 7 season winner. So it's pretty cool.
Great use.
Yeah.
It's fun if you're looking for something. Takes you about 4 hours for the auction, Andy?
Yeah, it takes about 4 or 5 hours depending on the number of participants, and then a couple of days later we do we simulate the season, so that's another hour. So it's basically a 6-hour time commitment spread over 2 days. Yeah.
So if your partner's going away and you have nothing to do on a weekend and Andy's running one, great way to kill time.
Yep. And I usually post that on, John's gracious enough to allow postings, obviously, for tournaments on the APBA website. So I usually post the upcoming auctions on the website.
Okay, anybody else want to plug something while we got y'all here?
No, but the boss of my house is telling me dinner's ready.
Yeah, I guess
Indeed.
that means we should call it here then.
Good night, gentlemen.
Good
All
night,
right,
Thank you
have a
very
good
much.
night. Thanks
thank
again.
you.
Great being
Yep,
here.
Thanks,
care.
everybody.
take care.
Good night, everybody. Again, thank you, Kenneth and Roswell.
Bye, gentlemen.
Thanks,
Bye
guys.
now.
See you next week, Andy.
You got it, John. I'll see you next week.